Rub-a-dub-dub, a fairy tale, written by Craig Spence, illustrated by Diana Durand. Captain Cornelius Moffat, retired, nudged the island breeze up to the dock, then cut the engine, while Jake tied up the bow and Jenny the stern. "Well done, mates," he called down from the bridge. "We're snug against the storm now." Shielding their eyes, his grandchildren looked up into the perfectly clear, perfectly calm summer sky over Nanaimo. Neither asked out loud, but both were thinking, what storm? Since he couldn't think of an answer, Cap sighed and headed below to fix himself a cup of tea. "There's always a storm," he muttered. "Just 'cause it hasn't broken doesn't mean it's not out there brooding over the horizon." The kids had become bored during the long crossing from Vancouver, but not Cap Moffat. That's what made him such a good sailor, people supposed, his patience and attention to detail. Not once in all his years sailing the Georgia Strait had he ever been bored, and if he remained at the helm another 40 years, he never would lack for things to marvel at. Impossible, he said. He'd sailed the region in every kind of weather, at every time of year, as a deckhand on tugboats, as a naval man, a skipper aboard BC ferries. Cap's brain was filled to the gunnels with seafaring lore, which he'd picked up here and there the same way beachcombers find treasures in the sand. Since there was nothing he liked better than sharing his stories with anyone who would listen, the kids could expect a whopper or two while they were berthed in Nanaimo for the annual World Championship bathtub race. "Cap! Cap! Come up on deck!" He'd just settled into the dining nook when Jen shouted down. "What is it, dear?" he called up, trying not to sound impatient. "Come on, Grandad, you'll miss it." He sighed, looking longingly at his steaming mug of tea and a plate of chocolate chip cookies he was about to devour. With a groan, he pushed these aside and hoisted himself to his feet. Cap figured he'd never get out of shape, not with Jen and Jake around. Those two could keep you busier than a squirrel in a peanut factory. "What is it?" he griped, popping his head out of the companionway. "Look!" Jen pointed over the starboard rail. Heaving himself onto the aft deck, Cap took a gander. Alongside the island breeze bobbed a bathtub, and looking up from inside was a weathered old-timer, obviously a seafaring man. Snowy hair and a grizzled beard framed the racer's ruddy cheeks, bulbous nose, and pale blue eyes. The figure squinted up at Cap, and Cap squinted down at him for a couple of seconds. Then they both smiled broadly. "Cap Moffat? That you?" the man inquired. "Well, I'm pretty sure it is," Cap boomed, "and if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at Brendan Zoltoff, skipper of the Morning Star." "That'd be me," the bather confirmed. "Those your deckhands?" He nodded toward the twins, who were gawking over the side. "Yes," Cap laughed. "That's my crew, Jenny and Jake." "Looks like they were specially made to fit your new ship," Brendan grinned. "Pint-sized." The two men guffawed so that everyone up and down the marina could hear them. Jenny and Jake cringed. Brendan eyed the children. His right brow arched, his left creased in a frown. He smiled hugely, extending his big, calloused hand. "Pleased to meet you," he bellowed, squeezing so hard the twins thought the bones in their fingers might crack. Brendan Zoltoff was what you'd call a character, one of the many Cap had introduced them to over the years. "Hello, Mr. Zoltoff," they said. "Mr. Zoltoff," the man in the tub thundered. "Just call me Brendan, or Uncle Brendan if you prefer. 'Cause me and Cap are almost brothers. Isn't that right, Cap?" Cap nodded as he gave Uncle Brendan's tub an admiring once-over. "That doesn't look like the Morning Star you're floating in, Brendan." "Well, no, not exactly," the other admitted. "Seems a strange bit of boat for a fisherman to be bobbing in." "True," the other agreed, relaxing in his tub as if he were having a nice soak. "You're not planning to enter the great race, are you?" Cap inquired after a while. "You mean the great International World Championship bathtub race?" "That'd be the one." Uncle Brendan looked around as if someone up on the pier or in one of the nearby boats might have an answer. Then he noticed that he was sitting in a bathtub, and it was floating in the harbor, and the harbor did happen to be Nanaimo, home of the very race he and Cap were talking about. "Well," he said, scratching his head, "I've been thinking about it." The two men had a good laugh. Geez, Cap gasped. You're crazier than I thought, Brendan. Second childhood, I guess, the other shrugged. Never knew you got through your first. Speaking of children, Uncle Brendan ignored him. I don't suppose those two deckhands of yours would like to test drive this here tub sometime before the race. Cap glanced at Jake and Jen. Yes, they cried in unison. Can we, Grandad? Apparently, they're more than willing, Cap reported. Cap had plotted a course to Nanaimo with the great bathtub race in mind. The idea was to watch the start in Nanaimo Harbor, walk over to Departure Bay, taking in some of the Marine Festival activities in Maffeo Sutton Park along the way, and then end up at the finish line in time to cheer the tubbers in after their 54-kilometer run to and from Winchelsea Island. The kids never dreamed they would get to meet a real live tubber, and then be invited to actually try out his boat. The two of them whooped and hollered so loud the adults couldn't get a word in edgewise, and Uncle Brendan wondered out loud about the level of discipline aboard Cap's ship. When can we try her out? They pleaded. Uncle Brendan considered the matter, frowning and tapping his noggin. Well, he mused, I guess sea trials could begin right about now. The shooting star could do with a little workout. That's how Jake and Jen got to ride in a real tub, zooming up and down Nanaimo Harbor with Uncle Brendan and Cap following in the island breeze's zodiac. The harbor lay smooth as glass and the shooting star skimmed along, her motor buzzing and the water hissing under her fiberglass hull. They marveled at how quick she was, how she zigged and zagged at the slightest twist of the outboard's handle. She's a beauty, Jake hollered, pulling up to the Zodiac after the final run. Yeah, Uncle Brendan agreed, but get her out into the strait on a choppy sea and it feels like you're riding a jackhammer in an earthquake. She'll shake your bones up pretty good. I'd love to take her into the great race, Jen declared. It would be so exciting, running with all the others, trying to get out in front. She demonstrated, crouching in the tub and making engine sounds at the back of her throat. Uncle Brendan laughed. Tell you what, he offered. I'm getting too old for this kind of thing myself, and in a few years you two will be big enough to enter the race. If you still feel up for it then, you can be my drivers. The twins stared open-mouthed for about half a second, then besieged him with questions. Who gets to go first? How will we train? How old do you have to be? Is there a prize? We'll sort all that out later, Cap intervened, seeing his old friend's desperate look. It's getting on, and since Uncle Brendan has provided the first half of the afternoon's fun, I think it's only right that we provide the second, dinner and a tale. That settled, they towed Uncle Brendan's tub back to the Morning Star and zipped over to the island breeze. Cap busied himself in the galley while the others crowded into the dining nook. What's your story about, Grandad? Jen asked. Cap smiled, lost for a second in thought. It's about the very first bathtub race that ever was, he said. It's about Mildred Wilcott's stupendous tub, Irene McCormick's blackberry pie, and the day Patrick Mahone stole the two of them. Satisfied with their puzzled looks, Cap set to chopping, seasoning, stirring, and tasting. And as he cooked, he told the tale of the very first race. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Rub-a-Dub-Dub. Future episodes will be posted on my website at www.craigspence.ca. That's www.craigspence.ca. Or you can send me an email at craig-spence@shaw.ca and request updates when future episodes are posted. Thanks again. Goodbye.